so many people, they're in such times of change and transformation right now. They don't know where they're going. They just know that their soul is calling them towards something. And the more that we can encourage them and the more that we can allow them to know that that's okay and that their path can be different. If no one's been on your path yet, it's actually a good thing, the better, because we need more people that are in service to the planet. We need more people that are here to help and that are here to make change for the good rather than just follow the path that they know they're supposed to.
In my late 20s, I was kind of thrust into this like 7-year period of being single, and I spent a lot of time by myself. I got to know just my soul and my heart. There was a vision that she had from my life that my mind could not fathom on its own. I knew that just following that feeling would lead me to much more than I could ever plan for myself. So I think when you spend that time by yourself and get to know yourself, you then trust that part of you, that soul part of you more. And it brings you ultimately to a lot more joy and a lot more depth.
Well, hello there, and welcome to this episode of The Terri Cole Show, where I am having an enlivening and interesting conversation with my friends, so it's a bit of a girlfriend jam, Lindsey Simcik and Krista Williams from the Almost 30 podcast, because these ladies have written a book which is so exciting. And really, they wrote a book because they've had this incredibly successful podcast for years, since 2016. And people have been asking them to write a book about their own life transitions and how they went from where they were to where they are. So the name of the book is Almost 30, A Definitive Guide to a Life You Love for the Next Decade and Beyond. And we covered all the things. So if you don't know, they have been around for almost 10 years. And really, they started it because they were almost 30 at that point. And now they're in their now they're almost 40. And it was really about life transitions. And they've really become female empowerment leaders and have just released this book 2 days ago. So we talked all about their transitions and how we can weather the storm of transitions easier and better. We talked about Saturn return and what that means, and everyone goes through it. So anyway, lots and lots of information, and I just had a blast interviewing these ladies. So I hope that you love this interview as much as I loved interviewing my friends. I am so pumped to have my friends, Lindsey and Krista from Almost 30 on the Terri Cole Show. Welcome to the show, gals.
Terri, we love you. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, I could just talk to you all day off mic. And so I'm excited, even more excited to talk to you on mic. You've been on Almost 30 and you've been such an important guest for us and such an amazing woman and friend to look up to. And it feels really special to be doing and talking about our book on your show. So thank you for having us.
And I feel like a proud mama. Like I'm literally, when I heard, it was really happening, I was like, oh my God, they're writing a book.
Oh, I love you.
So exciting. So before we get into talking about the book, which is all about transitions and life transitions and different seasons of life, because you guys have both been through so much. And what's so beautiful about your audience and how long you've been doing this is that your audience is like transforming with you. And you're like journeying with all of us. It's just so beautiful. You're leading, but you're also seeking. And it's like just this beautiful combination of like wisdom and curiosity that I love about what you guys have been doing for years. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. Let's start with, everyone does what they do for a reason. So I would like to hear from you guys singly. Like if you were a Marvel movie character, what would your origin story be, right? Like I do what I do for a reason. I've got my own origin story, but what led you here? Krista, you go first.
Yeah, so I would say what led me to a place of wanting to help people and support people in times of change and transformation was my own rock bottom. I did the path that everyone said to do. I went to college, I got a degree, I got a job in the corporate world in the big city, and I felt like I was on my way. I was dating someone that I had dated all of college, who was an amazing man. I was just on the path that everyone told me I would love, but I was more unhappy than ever. I had such bad anxiety that I remember one morning waking up and having a split second, maybe a few seconds before my anxiety started again. And I remember just the feeling of a pause and waiting, and then it coming and being like, I can't I don't want to live. I was someone that really struggled with my mental health, and that was often something I would go to, would be not desiring to live. And I
Mm.
walked out of my room and I walked into the living room where my best friend was because she was staying. And I was like, I don't think I can do this. And she was mirroring back to me that she had never seen me so low. So I had everything that I had thought I wanted: the job, the relationship, living in the city, all of that. Yet I was more anxious and depressed than ever. And I was
Yeah.
more out of alignment and integrity. So what looked very weird on the outside for everyone else meant I quit my job. I moved and went off grid to Patagonia for a month to figure out who I was. I eventually met my now ex-husband, moved to New York after meeting him maybe 5 times, to just completely seeking in a way that I never had before. But although it looked more on the outside like I was more lost than ever, I
Mm.
knew I was getting closer to being the person I became. And I knew I was feeling more on purpose and satisfied. So my desire and intention is for anyone that's listening, or any of our audience or your audience, just to know that what sometimes looks like you're lost is sometimes when you're the most found, and sometimes when you're the most on purpose. And I'm really grateful that now I live a life where I'm very much in my seeking and wisdom and curiosity.
Mm. Love it. All right, what about you, Linz?
Yeah, similar to Krista, I kind of found myself in a life that I realized was a lot of other people's dream. I grew up wanting so badly to become a famous movie star, and had done all the things to make sure that was a possibility, studying this in school and going to college and majoring in theater, and moving to New York as you do, and getting 3 bartending jobs, and trying to juggle auditions during the day, even though I had been up till 4 a.m. bartending the night prior. Just really running myself into the ground for something that had expired, but I kept pushing because
Mm.
of what I felt was this expectation of the people around me, of society's expectation of what my success would be, my own pressures of myself to be successful or really achieve what I had set out to do so early in my life. And in that late 20s period, I went through a really, really explosive breakup where I basically, threw the grenade and blew it up. And my life as I knew it just completely changed. I thought I was going to marry him. I thought we would be married by 27, kids by 29, have a house by 30. And everything I thought I should have or would have just kind of dissolved. And in that, I realized that there were just aspects of my life that, I wasn't really creating or following because my heart wanted it. It was because other people did. So my late 20s really was this shift in direction towards me and like my own heart and following that. And, I think being able to support people through seasons of change now, I realize that community and just the guidance and wisdom of those either that have come before me, have gone through it, or just in particular experiences, whether it's like relationship experts. I was finding that, oh wow, like, okay, I can seek the tools and guidance that will help me just one step at a time navigate this abyss that felt like I couldn't see a foot in front of me.
Mm.
So yeah, it was a lot of my own zigging and zagging and realizing that, my life was something that I wanted to create from my heart rather than the pressures of other people.
Amazing. So when we're thinking about who is this book for? Like, who did you write this book for?
I think in a selfish way, I wrote this book for the version of me that was in my, late 20s, that felt really lost. And when Lindsey and I found each other, it was like we just started to have these really open, honest conversations on a closet floor about life and about relationships and about our bodies and about all of these things that we didn't feel like anyone else was talking about. And I know that if I would have had a guidebook to the transition from our 20s to our 30s, or how to relate to change in general, my life would be so different. And I think the biggest thing that I wanted people to get from this, that I wish I would have known, was
Mhm.
that the change could be for the good. Like,
Mhm.
your just everything that's happening is a possibility, allowing that uncertainty you feel to feel like adventure rather than feel scary or feel overwhelming or feel like everything is doomed. Like so much was changing in our lives at the time, but it was all for the good. But in the time, I just was struggling so much that I couldn't see it. And so for myself, but for anyone that really wants to change their relationship with change or wants a spiritual guidebook to adulting.
I love the idea of therapeutically. I'd always say to my clients, like, we're grasping onto fear. Is it possible to see it as anticipatory excitement instead of terror, even though they feel so much alike? And there were so many times in my own life where I had to sort of, can I switch the lens? And I feel like when you live, like this is a perfect time for this book, for you guys and for the audience, because you have so many people going through these experiences and having it be exactly as Lindsey, you said the abyss, you said like terrifying, Krista, and this is what the experience is, especially if you're a good girl, especially if you're a type A girl, especially if, you crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's. So let's talk, in the book you share about your Saturn return. So tell us a little bit about what the deal is with Saturn return and why should we care?
Yeah, this is a really interesting concept that Krista and I discovered while we were doing Almost 30 in the early years. And when we found out what our Saturn return was and that we were going through it, we were like, like everything makes sense. Okay. So we knew we had to write about it. Your Saturn return is astrologically the time when Saturn returns to the place in your chart it was when you were born. And why this is significant is because Saturn is the planet of, tough love. Saturn is going to show you what is working, what is aligned, and what is not. It will really magnify the misalignment. And oftentimes this can feel uncomfortable, chaotic, like your life is falling apart, like you should have it more together. And really, in this cracking of what you've known to be your life, there is a lot of light that wants to come through. I know seasons of change can feel a little bit darker and dimmer, but there's a lot of opportunity for light. So it's in this period in your late 20s, around 27 or so, that you will begin your Saturn return for about 3 years. Everyone's a little bit different. You can find out when your Saturn returns happen, when it happens on our website. But it's during this period that, you will be hopefully set up for a life that you are really proud of, that you really, really love because you took the time to slow down, to allow for this change to work on you, and to finally choose what is right for you according to what your soul wants. So everybody goes through it. It's not just people that believe in astrology. Every single person goes through their Saturn return. But I'm curious actually what you experienced in your late 20s, Terri.
Where was I? I was a talent agent. I was, I think, in an unsatisfying relationship. I was having a lot of therapy. I was very ambitious and very successful in the world of entertainment, but I was unsatisfied. So it's interesting how my Saturn return was the beginning of quitting a very fancy job, being poor again, right? Just knowing I'm making a choice that means I'm not going to have any dough for a while, going to grad school, becoming a psychotherapist, making a decision during those years also, which is interesting that it does make sense that it was Saturn return that I finally rejected the notion that I needed to be married. I really did. I just didn't want to. And it was in that saying, you know what? I just cannot make myself small. I just cannot. I cannot. I mean, I guess I could. I just stopped wanting to because I had been doing it. And it was so liberating as I moved into my early 30s to be like, I've made this amazing life. Like that does not define me and I don't have to let it. And it's interesting. It was in that shift of letting it go and just building the life that I actually wanted and the career that I actually wanted and doing what I actually wanted, that it was like Vic, my partner of 29 years, just floated into my lap like a feather. Like he literally just appeared. And I was like,
Hmm.
wow, this looks great, because there was no need for it. So yeah, there was a lot going on in my Saturn return.
Isn't it wild? And, maybe from the outside, people will be like, what? She's leaving this successful career. She has all this going for her. But there's something inside that says no. And there's something inside that says there's better and there's more aligned. And your partner is almost the gift of following your soul because he's the match for what you walked into, which was your truth. And it probably looked messy and it probably wasn't comfortable and you probably didn't know where you were going, but you still chose to go anyways. And I think for so many people, they're in such times of change and transformation right now. They don't know where they're going. They just know that their soul is calling them towards something. And the more that we can encourage them and the more that we can allow them to know that that's okay and that their path can be different and that's actually a good thing. If no one's been on your path yet, it's actually a good thing. The better, because we need more people that are in service to the planet. We need more people that are here to help and that are here to make change for the good rather than just follow the path that they know they're supposed to.
And the joy, that's awesome, Krista, because what you guys are really talking about is the joy on the other side,
Yes.
right? Like, what happens when you give yourself permission to actually be yourself? Like, what
Yes.
happens in life? Things
Yeah.
change, right?
Yep. Yep. And I still have to give myself permission every single day. Like I was even
Mhm.
in therapy last night and my therapist was like talking about a situation with my family where I find it really hard to communicate with them because they're not very deep people. And, I was like very disappointed by a conversation. And she's like, Krista, you're a deep person. You just need to accept that about yourself. And even at my age and all the work I've done, had to have that reminder of who I am and that I am different. I think differently and I feel differently. So the more people that can really know themselves, the more that they can really embrace themselves and be themselves in the world, the better for them and the better for us to experience. And I think for some practical ways that people can know themselves more deeply, we always love to use tools. So we're in the spirituality space, and it can be helpful to use tools like human design or astrology. Therapy, I think, is always the best way. Having someone that's holding space and mirroring things back to you is really
Mhm.
supportive. And then spending time just studying yourself. I always say to study yourself like an alien. If you were an alien that came to Earth and you were watching yourself move through the day, move through your life, what would you notice? How are you with people? Like, how do you dress? How do you act? Like, how do you feel? And by really having like that lens, you can understand yourself more deeply because once we understand ourselves is when we can really show up in the world.
So, what does Deepak Chopra say about becoming the observer without judgment? He talks about it as being sort of the highest that we can evolve personally, and think about the space of what you're saying, Krista, of what does this create when we become radically curious, which is what you're suggesting, about who we are, about what we're doing. Because so much of the time we are disconnected from what we're doing. We're very connected to what we think, but I feel like we can be disconnected from what we're actually doing in life, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's why I think during this time, just that disconnection piece, I think it's so important that we actually find time to ourselves and really start to cultivate a relationship with ourselves where we enjoy our own company. And in my late 20s, I was kind of thrust into this like 7-year period of being single. And I spent a lot of time by myself and I
Mhm.
resisted it at first because I had really only known myself for a long period of time to in a relationship or like with 10 girlfriends surrounding me at all times, you know?
Right.
And I was really forced to, be with myself, be with my thoughts, be with my own heart. And in that time, I mean, I realized so much, but one of the things I realized, which is what we're talking about, is the power of the mind and just
Mm.
how much it has to say about every little thing I do and
Mhm.
how it's not really kind most of the time and how
Mhm.
it is fear-based most of the time and really just wants to keep me safe and oftentimes small. And so the more time I spent with myself, the more time I got to know just my soul and my heart. That's when I kind of connected with like what we now know as the soul. And I just realized, not only just how like loving and incredible she was, but that there was a vision that she had from my life that my mind could not fathom on its own. And I knew that following her, even though it would be blindly sometimes, because I didn't always know where it would lead, I knew that just following that feeling would lead me to much more than I could ever plan for myself. So
Right.
I think when you spend that time by yourself and get to know yourself, you then trust that part of you, that soul part of you more. And it brings you ultimately to a lot more joy and a lot more depth.
It's so true. So let's bring us back a little bit, though, because you guys have been doing this for a long time. How long have you had Almost 30 Pod?
Since
9 years.
2016.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
So to bring us back to the beginning of your relationship, like how did you guys meet and how did you sort of recognize this sort of soul connection that you have developed?
So we met because I thought I wanted to be a soul cycle instructor. I, for so long, was trying to find purpose and trying to find any career that was meaningful and made me feel good. And when I found Soul Cycle, which is a fitness experience. It's like a fitness class in New York. You're basically cycling. I thought I had found like the thing. And so Lindsey was an amazing Soul Cycle instructor in Los Angeles. And when I was trying to audition, I was like, I need to be connected to someone that's a really good instructor that can help me with my audition because it's actually very hard to
Mhm.
become a Soul Cycle instructor. So we connected on FaceTime and through a friend, and she helped me with my audition that I didn't end up getting. And twice I auditioned and didn't get it. But when we met, there was just something about her that I felt so safe in and that I felt so seen by. And I'll never forget a moment we had at a girls' dinner. There was a bunch of girls at a dinner, and Lindsey and I happened to be sitting next to each other. And she just started opening up about her family and sort of her experiences with her family. And I just was like, felt like this sense of having an authentic experience and connection that I hadn't really been having with other people. I hadn't really
Mm.
been speaking authentically and truthfully about how I feel in my life and my family. And there was this depth and texture there that was new to me. And I just wanted more. It felt like I was finally seeing the truth. And so we just both followed our curiosity and followed our love and followed our excitement. And I do think truthfully that you can invest in relationships and you can really spend a lot of time making your relationships meaningful and powerful. But from my perspective, there always is a soul element. You know, there's
Mhm.
just a greater plan at place and a greater mission at place. And for us, we had a greater plan and a mission of being brought together when we were brought together. And that was to birth almost 30 and to deepen our friendship. So I do truly believe that we're soulmates in this life. And then we've
Mhm.
also done so much work to cultivate our deep relationship and our business partnership.
I'm always fascinated because I'm so fascinated by the human condition and relationships and all of that, of how
Mhm.
we just find our people and
Yeah.
we just like, you know it, and it always makes me think about past lives because it's like, why is it that some people you are immediately drawn to and some people you are immediately repulsed by, where you're like, "I don't know why, but I do not like them," you know?
Totally.
And you're like, "Did we have a bad marriage in the past? Like, what is the deal?"
There's so many layers to that because you could be like, it could be they're a projection of me, they're my mirror, they're triggering me because I want their career. It could be a past lives. Like that's what's so fun about all of it. It's like, wow, all the possibilities with things. But yeah, we definitely have been married many times in past lives. We've been like partners, we've been pirates. We've had so many readings from psychics and mediums and intuitives over the years because we
I
work
love
in
it.
that space. Like
Right.
it's just been a myriad of journeys we've been on.
I love it. So, we talked about your relationship, how it started, but then how did Almost 30 itself? How did you start the pod?
Krista and I met at a time in our lives where honestly so much was like falling apart, and we just found a lot of comfort and healing in our friendship. And Krista had been listening to podcasts for a really long time as just a form of, self-growth. Podcasts are an incredible way to learn about anything you want. She came to me one day and she was like, "Do you think we could start a podcast about like what we've been going through and talking about just in our friendship?" And I never say no to a creative project. Well, I have said no, but anything that
Yeah.
lights me up and just interests me, I'm like, let's do it. Why not? We had no idea of like, would this become a business? Should we make money from this? It just felt good. And so I had a $15 recorder in my kitchen drawer and I was like, yeah, let's just use that. Let's go in your closet in your studio apartment in Venice. That's like some great acoustics in there. And we just recorded for 6 months, which was a really cool time to experiment and get to know each other in that forum of like, how do our voices like meld together? How does like our chemistry feel? And just like practicing, when you're a duo on a podcast, you got to make sure you're not talking over each other all the time and, all of that. So after 6 months, we just felt like, you know what? It's not perfect, but we're just going to put it out there. And we did so in September 2016. And from there, almost 30 has been, our baby, where she's really grown up and gone into the world and has showed us what she wants to do and what she wants to be and who she wants to impact. And so we've really been committed to being stewards of her mission. And the community formed really organically because honestly, I think so many people were relating to what we were sharing on the pod, what we were going through, everything from, these like dating horror stories to like dealing with, aspects of how we grew up that might be affecting who we are now. So yeah, it was something that just came from our experience. Thankfully, it's been something that has resonated and, reached people all over the world.
It's such a nice community, too. I've done stuff with you guys and your community, and the people are so, well, they're like you guys. I mean,
They
just
love you.
nice and smart and kind and seeking, and it's actually so much fun. Let's talk a little bit. In the book, you guys talk about the power or the importance of befriending your body. And Krista, I know this has been a thing for you. So can you talk a little bit about how your relationship with your body changed in your 20s?
Yeah, I'm so grateful to talk about this because, I was someone that never thought that I would love my body, accept my body, feel neutral
Mm.
about my body. I'll never forget one time in my late 20s, we were doing the podcast and I was walking across the floor in my living room and I had been strategizing all day, as I always had done, about how many calories I was going to have, how many
Mhm.
steps I was taking, how many calories I'd burned that day, how much I weighed. And, it was just the jigsaw of the body conversation and the jigsaw of wanting to be smaller or wanting to be different than what I was. And I remember thinking, I'm going to die with this as my dominant thought. And I'm going to live my
Mhm.
entire life just trying to change myself and trying to fix what I thought was something was wrong with me. And it was in that moment of almost like acceptance where I was almost defeated. I was almost like, you know what, this is what it is. This is how I'm going to be. And what it allowed for me was to actually give me the chance to really transform and change. And from that point, I was able to find a therapist and really work on my body. But my journey had been one of struggle. And it was almost like my body was the enemy. And it was like something to be fixed and something to be changed. And I think a lot of women can relate to that feeling where they constantly are in this loop of needing to lose weight or
Mhm.
needing to be thin or needing to be curvy or whatever the thing is. And most of our lives, if that is the dominant thought are wasted because we're not able to be in our power. We're not able to be, in our pleasure. We're not able to be in a life that's here because our mind
Mhm.
is keeping us preoccupied with the strategizing and changing. And when we befriend our body, when we become friends to our body, we see it as something that is always trying to do right by us. And my body is constantly, our body is, the body is constantly trying to do right by us. When we are sick, we get a fever to help regulate our body to be better. Like all the reactions of our system is to hopefully bring us back to homeostasis, to a place where we can really truly be. So I had to really learn to first be neutral with my body and then to accept my body and then to befriend my body and eventually love my body because I think it's easier when we think about the body conversation to start from a place of more neutrality than just going
Mhm.
from I literally hate my body to body love. It's easier to kind of move us up the scale.
Yep.
But when we really do befriend our body and become at a place of peace with our bodies, our entire life transforms and changes, and we can really be present in the moment to what is rather than just in the mind all the time.
Oh, it's just such an important conversation. And I love that you're sharing your story because it really
Yeah.
is a story of self love, right? It's a story of self consideration. And I think that there are many, many people who are to this day, as you said, struggling
Yeah.
with that level. And it's such, I love the epiphany that you had, because it's such a vortex
Yep.
of like energy and time,
Yep.
bandwidth that like, wow. So do you feel like you've gained bandwidth by not having all of those obsessive thoughts every minute of every day?
It's opened my life up in a way that not only has impacted my purpose and my career, because now I can go out on stage or do what I'm doing and I don't have the thought of, is, I look fat or how do I look or whatever. Like, you can't be present in the moment if you're constantly wondering about how you look. Like,
Yep.
and I've noticed that too now that I feel free being around women in spaces where they have the body thoughts, how small they make themselves, how much they
Yeah.
hide, how much they are
Yep.
whatever. And so not only has my career opened up where I feel like I can just be in the space that I'm at with the people that I'm at, but also my love and relationships. Being able to be present and in a body that I feel attuned to and comfortable in has allowed me to be so much more intimate with people in a way that's physical, but then in a way that's just like not judging myself or hiding or trying to be something that I'm not. And I truly believe that one of the ways in which they've kept women small and they've kept women out of their power is by giving us this thought that there's something wrong with us, that there's something wrong with curves, or there's something wrong with actually having a woman's body that changes and evolves and just, has this experience of being a living thing that evolves over time. And so when we
Hmm.
think about our path to enlightenment or to a life that we love, I actually truly think that starting with the love of the body or the acceptance of the body is a beautiful place, because from the physical part, we can allow more of the soul in, we can allow more of the truth in, we can allow more of the love in, and it can really show us and teach us what it's like to have true love and self acceptance. And that was part of my path.
What you're talking about is like radical. It's actually a radical act of self-love,
Yes.
right? Because going against this patriarchal system, because that want women to be small, so they're more malleable, they're more controllable, they're less of a pain, they're less of a force to be reckoned with, right? It would make sense that they want us to take up less space, you know? I've had a long journey in my life, up and down, but it's interesting. There's a certain amount of confidence that I always sort of had through having this very secure relationship with my mother. So even when I was suffering with body image and body change, because I did a lot of up and down. That was my relationship to it. It was food. And I'd say certainly in the last like 15 years or last 20 years maybe, I just found my balance of being like, and for me, having cancer in my early 30s had everything to do with changing what happened with the way that I relate to my body, because it's such a profound wake-up call,
Yeah.
where for me, the gym was all about the size of my ass. And then you get cancer, and now everything is about health.
Yeah.
Everything is about health, because at an early age in my life, I had the wake-up call that without your health, there is nothing else.
Mhm.
When you have a health crisis, the only thing you have is a health crisis.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So that shifted my mind and really brought up all these, like, am I living the life I want? I mean,
Yeah.
I changed a whole lot about my life then, but I really started appreciating my body, as Chris Carr would say, as the God pod that it
Mhm.
actually is,
Mm.
rather than this thing to get a certain kind of attention, or this thing to, I don't know, manipulate almost, you know? So
Yes.
I started owning my body for myself rather than the male gaze or someone else's view of what it was. It was like, oh no, this is the body that's carrying me all over the place. This is the one that's showing up for me. That is a friggin' miracle every single day. So treat it with the reverence that it deserves. And I feel like I
Mhm.
really do.
Yeah, and there's two things there, and I love so much what you said, and it just makes me so excited. So the first is, if we are spiritual people, if anyone here is listening considers themselves a spiritual person, part of that spirituality is being in the body, is having reverence for the physical form in which our soul
Yeah.
inhibits and experiences life. So I think there's a part of spirituality that kind of wants to bypass the human experience in the body,
Mhm.
but really the gateway to the deepest spiritual experience is by being in the body. And then the second thing you were talking about is, going to the gym and having the intention of working out for the ass or whatever the thing is. And
Mhm.
that was so much of my life. And I'm sure Lindsay can relate to part of that as well. And that just makes me think on the bigger scale around when we the intention of things. And I think when we get in our 20s and our late 20s before our 30s, we kind of realize, what is the energy that's driving me? And I think using that as the example of like, okay, am I going to the gym because I want to feel well and healthy because I love my body and I want to see
Mhm.
what's possible? Or is it because I hate myself? And I
Right.
think when I was really pulled up and looked at a lot of the things I was doing in life, am I trying to get this promotion because I love what I do or because I don't want to look like a failure? Am I
Mhm.
here at work because I'm scared of what it's like to not be at that job? Am I in this relationship because I don't want people to judge me or because I actually love this person? And when we can get honest about our intention behind things, we can really find, that freedom and liberation to kind of choose differently.
Mhm.
So, so good. You guys, I'm super excited about your book. You guys who are listening, go get it. It dropped 2 days ago. You can get it anywhere fine books are sold. Almost 30, a definitive guide to a life you love for the next decade and beyond. You guys, tell us, everyone, where they can find you and all the things.
Thank you, Terri. This is incredible. It's so good to see you. And thanks for just allowing us to connect with your audience.
Sure.
You can get the book anywhere books are sold. So at all bookstores, online. And you can find more about Almost 30. We are a podcast that you can find anywhere podcasts you are listened to. And then on Instagram at Almost 30 Podcast, almost30.com. I'm at Lindsey Simcik on Instagram.
And I'm at It's Krista. It's Krista.
Yeah, you are. All right, you guys, I love you. Congratulations. I'm so proud.
Love you.
Thank you, Terri.